You know the moment. That microsecond of hesitation before a difficult conversation. The pause before a decision you cannot take back. The fraction of a second you freeze when someone challenges you. You can feel it. A catch in the flow of time. A gear grinding to a halt. Your mind stops. 400 years ago, a Zen priest wrote about this exact problem. He had a word for it. And in his judgment, the moment your mind stops, you have already lost. When people talk about this state, one name always comes up. Miyamoto Musashi. That attribution is wrong. Musashi wrote about strategy, timing, and the geometry of killing. He was extraordinary at it. But the doctrine of no mind, the actual teaching worked out in detail, comes from somewhere else entirely. It comes from a letter. Written by a Zen priest who never fought a duel in his life. His name was Takuan Soho. He was born in 1573, became abbot of one of the most important temples in Kyoto, and was, by most accounts, difficult. He was a calligrapher, a poet, a gardener. There is a pickled radish named after him that Japanese households still eat today. He was also exiled. In 1627, the shogunate claimed the right to appoint monks to the imperial temples, a privilege that had belonged to the emperor for centuries. Most senior priests stayed quiet. Takuan did not. He drafted the protest and put his name on it. They banished him to the far north. He spent 3 years there. Remember that because it matters later. The man who wrote about the unattached mind was a man who had personally paid for refusing to bend. And here is the part people leave out. When he was eventually pardoned, the shogun who pardoned him, Tokugawa Iemitsu, became his student. The man who had exiled him for stubbornness later built him a temple. There is a reason this letter was written when it was. By the 1620s, Japan had stopped fighting. The great civil wars were finished. The Tokugawa had won, and they had won so completely that the country would not see a real battle for 250 years. Which left the samurai with a problem. A warrior class with no war. Swords worn every day, drawn almost never. An entire profession built for a situation that no longer existed. In that vacuum, swordsmanship began turning into something else, a discipline of the mind rather than a method of killing. Schools multiplied. Masters started writing. So when Takuan writes about the mind that stops, he is not describing a battlefield problem. He is describing a problem that has already outlived the battlefield. That is precisely why it survived the 400 years between him and you. The letter was addressed to Yagi Munenori. Munenori was not a philosopher. He was the official sword instructor to the Tokugawa shoguns, the military rulers of Japan. His school was one of only 2 the government sponsored. He taught the men who guarded the most powerful family in the country. This changes what the letter is. It was not a poem for the public. It was technical guidance, written privately, for a man whose students would live or die according to how well he taught them. Munenori took it seriously enough that his own treatise, written in 1632, is soaked in it. The text is called Fudochi Shinmyoroku, the mysterious record of immovable wisdom. The core of it is one idea. The mind that stops anywhere is a mind that has been captured. Takuan lays it out with almost mechanical precision. If the swordsman puts his mind on his opponent's blade, his mind is taken by the blade. If he puts it on his opponent's movement, it is taken by the movement. If he puts it on his own technique, it is taken by his technique. If he puts it on the hope of winning, it is taken by the hope. If he puts it on the fear of being cut, it is taken by the fear. In every case, he writes, you become empty-handed. The flow breaks. A gap opens. And in that gap he is killed. Notice what he is not saying. He is not saying pay less attention. He is not saying stop thinking. Every single one of those things, the blade, the movement, the technique, the outcome, is a reasonable thing to attend to. That is what makes the trap so difficult. The failure is never in noticing. It is in lodging. The mind arrives somewhere sensible and then does not leave. Takuan has a term for the mind in that state. He calls it the abiding mind, the mind that takes up residence. Its opposite is not an absent mind. It is a mind that passes through. Put it in a body because the abstraction hides how fast this is. 2 men 6 feet apart. One of them shifts his weight barely a few centimeters. The other man sees it and in seeing it thinks, he is going to cut. That thought takes perhaps half a second. It is a correct thought. He read the movement accurately. And the half second it took to have it is the half second in which the cut lands. He did not lose because he was slow or untrained or afraid. He lost because his mind stopped on a true observation. Being right about the wrong thing at the wrong speed is still losing. This is Takuan's whole argument compressed into one moment. Not think better. Not think faster. Do not put the mind down. This is where most people get it wrong. Mushin is not a blank mind. It is not emptiness. It is not a trance, and it is certainly not detachment or not caring. It is the opposite of blankness. It is a mind moving at full speed with no point of attachment, perceiving everything, fixing on nothing. Takuan called it immovable wisdom, and the word immovable does not mean frozen. It means it cannot be moved by anything because it does not lodge anywhere to begin with. The mind that stops is water that has frozen. Rigid, brittle, useless. The free mind is water still flowing. It fills any shape. It moves around anything in its path. He gives another image, a spark struck from flint. The response and the perception are the same event. There is no interval in which to deliberate. You will hear people call this a flow state. The resemblance is real, but they are not the same claim, and it is worth being honest about that. Flow is a description of how performance feels from the inside. Takuan was making a stronger argument about where attention lodges and what that costs you. Takuan uses one more image, and it is the one worth keeping. Kannon, the bodhisattva of compassion, is depicted with 1,000 arms. If her mind stopped in the one hand holding the bow, Takuan writes, the other 999 would be useless. Her mind stops nowhere. So every hand works. The stopping mind was the enemy for a swordsman. It is the enemy in your ordinary life, and you meet it every day. It is the mind that stops to rehearse a sentence 3 times before saying it. It is the mind that stops at 3 in the morning to replay an argument, hunting for a better answer you will never get to use. It is the mind that stops on a message you already sent, refreshing, waiting, bound to an outcome that is no longer yours. It is the mind that stops on the fantasy of the right moment, and so never makes the call, never starts the thing, never begins. It is the mind that stops inside research, gathering more, always more, instead of moving. Every one of these is a snag. The mind has lodged. The stakes are different from a duel, but the mistake is identical, and it costs you the same thing. The response you would have given if you had not stopped. Takuan does not only diagnose. 3 practices come out of the text. The first is the unfixed gaze. In a conversation, attend to the words, the tone, the posture, the silence between sentences, all of it at once. Fix on none of it. The moment you lock onto one thing, you lose the rest. Soft attention. Distributed. Nowhere in particular, and therefore everywhere. You can test this today, and it takes about a minute. Sit somewhere with a view, a window, a street, a room with people in it. Notice how your eyes want to hunt. They find a thing, hold it, then find the next thing. Now stop hunting. Let the whole field arrive at once without selecting anything from it. You will feel the pull to lock onto something almost immediately. That pull is the habit. Feeling it is the practice. The second is to act before the deliberation loop closes. The analytical mind opens a gap between impulse and action, then fills that gap with reasons. The training is to shorten it. When the instinct to speak arrives, speak. When the path is visible, walk it. This is not recklessness, and the distinction matters enough to be blunt about it. A trained response and an impulsive one look identical from the outside and are not remotely the same thing. Takuan is writing to a man whose students had spent 10,000 hours with a sword in their hands. The instinct he is telling them to trust was built, not found. If you have not done the work, what arrives in that gap is not intuition. It is just whatever you happen to feel. The practice is to shorten the distance between a trained response and its execution, not to skip the training and call the result freedom. The third is to let the wrong move go the instant it is made. The swordsman makes a clumsy cut. You say the wrong thing in a meeting. The stopping mind fastens onto the error and carries it into the next moment, and the moment after that. The mistake is already over. Carrying it is just another way of stopping there. There is a trap at the center of all this. Mushin cannot be reached by wanting it. Wanting is itself a place where the mind stops. Reach for it and you have already failed. Takuan describes the progression. The beginner knows no rules, so his mind stops nowhere, he moves freely and badly. The student learns technique and gets worse because now his mind stops on everything he has learned. Only at the end does he return to something that looks like the beginning. The rules are in his body, so his mind no longer has to hold them. He does not go around the technique. He goes through it and out the other side. Go back to that microsecond. The pause before the hard conversation. The catch before the decision. You can feel it coming. You can feel the mind preparing to stop, on a fear, on a calculation, on the memory of the last time this went badly. The teaching is not that you should force that feeling away. It is that you can see it for what it is. Not a choice about what to do. The memory of the last time this went badly. The teaching is not that you should force that feeling away. It is that you can see it for what it is. Not a choice about what to do. A choice about where to put your mind. Or whether to put it anywhere at all. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe to MUSHİN CODEX. The next one goes deeper.